He grabbed a 5-gallon bucket to bring back some fruit. As he neared the pond, he heard voices shouting and laughing with glee. As he came closer, he saw it was a bunch of young women skinny dipping in his pond. He made the women away, and they all went to the deep end. One of the women shouted to him, "We're not coming out until you leave." The old man frowned. "I didn't come down here to watch you ladies swim naked or make you get out of the pond naked." Holding the bucket up, he said, "I'm only here to feed the crocodile." Some old men can still think fast. Mrs. Donovan was walking down O'Connell Saint in Dublin when she met up with Father Flaherty. The father said, "Top of the morning to ye. Aren't ye Mrs. Donovan, and didn't I marry you and your husband 2 years ago?" She replied, "Aye, that ye did, father." The father asked, "And be there any wee little ones yet?" She replied, "No, not yet, father." The father said, "Well, now I'm going to Rome next week, and I'll light a fertility candle for you and your hood." "Oh, thank you, father." They then parted ways. They met again. "Well now, Mrs. Donovan, how are you these days?" She replied. The father asked, "And tell me, have you any wee ones yet?" She replied, "Oh, yes, father. 2 sets of twins and 6 singles. 10 in all." The father said, "And how is your loving husband doing?" She replied, "He's gone to Rome to blow out your stupid candle." There was a farmer sitting on the front porch of his house this one hot summer day when this kid comes walking down the road carrying a big bundle of "Kid," the farmer says, "where are you going with that wire?" "Well," the kid drawls, "this here ain't just any old wire. This here's chicken wire. I'm fixing to catch me some chickens." "You can't catch chickens with chicken wire." "Sure I can," the kid says and takes off down the road. He comes back at the end of the day, and sure enough, he's got a whole mess of chickens caught in his chicken wire. Well, the farmer's sitting on his porch the next day, and the same kid comes walking down the lane carrying a big roll of tape. "Hey, kid," the farmer yells, "where are you going with that tape?" "Well, this here ain't just any old tape. This here's duct tape. I'm fixing to catch me some ducks." "You can't catch ducks with duct tape," the farmer yells back. "Sure I can," the kid says, and takes off down the road. He comes back at the end of the day. He had a whole bunch of ducks all wrapped up tightly in his tape. Again, and the kid comes walking down the road carrying a stick. "Hey, kid, going with that stick." "Well, this here isn't just any old stick. This here's pussy willow." "Hang on," the farmer says, "I'll get my hat." Mary lost her husband almost 4 years ago and still hasn't gotten out of her depression, mourning as if it were only yesterday. Her daughter, Sarah, is constantly calling and urging her to get back into the world. Finally, Mary says that she'd go out but didn't know anyone. Her daughter immediately replies, "Mom, I have someone for you to meet." Well, it was an immediate hit. They took to one another, and after dating for 6 weeks, he asked her to join him for a weekend, and we know what that meant. Their first night she undresses, as he does. There she stood nude except for a pair of black lacy panties. He is in his birthday suit. Looking at her, he asks, "Why the black panties?" She responds, "My breasts are yours to fondle, my body yours to explore, but down there I am still in mourning." He knows he... The following night, the same scenario. He has an erection on which he has a black condom. She looks at him and asks, "What's with this? A black condom?" He replies, "I want to offer my condolences." A man joins the Navy and is shipped out immediately to an aircraft carrier in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, showing the new recruit around the ship when the recruit asks the captain what the sailors do to satisfy their urges when they're at sea for so long. "Let me show you," says the captain. He takes the recruit down to the rear of the ship, where there's a solitary barrel with a hole in it. "This'll be the best sex you'll ever have. Go ahead and try it, and I'll give you some privacy." The recruit doesn't quite believe it, but he decides to try it anyway. After he finishes up, the captain returns. "Wow, that was the best sex I've ever had. I want to do it every day." "Fine. Why not Thursday?" That's your day in the barrel. A high school English teacher reminds her class of tomorrow's final exam. "Now, class, I won't tolerate any excuses for you not being there tomorrow. I might consider a nuclear attack or a serious personal injury or a death in your immediate family, but that's it. No other excuses whatsoever." A smart-ass guy in the back of the room raises his hand and asks, "What would you say if tomorrow I said I was suffering from complete and utter sexual exhaustion?" The entire class does its best to stifle their laughter and snickering. When silence is restored, the teacher smiles sympathetically at the student, shakes her head, and sweetly says, "Well, I guess you'd have to write the exam with your other hand." A farmer was in a bar drinking and looking all depressed. His friend asked him why he was looking depressed, and all he kept saying was, "Some things you just can't explain." Some things you just can't explain. This morning, I was outside milking a cow. As soon as the bucket was full, the cow kicked it down with her left foot, so I tied up her left foot to a pole. I began to fill up the bucket again, and she kicked it down with her right foot, so I tied her right foot to another pole, too. As soon as I finished milking the cow again, she knocked down the bucket with her tail, so I took off my belt and tied up her tail with my belt. As I was tying up her tail, my pants dropped down to the ground, and just then my wife came out. And well, trust me, some things you just can't explain. A guy walks into a bar. Once inside, he realizes it's a gay bar, but he decides, what the heck, I really want a drink. So he sits down at the bar, and the gay bartender says to him, "What's the name of your p-?" The guy says, "Look, I'm not into any of that. All I want is a drink." The gay bartender says, "I'm sorry, but I can't serve you until you tell me the name of your p-." So the guy looks at the man sitting to his left, who is sipping on a beer, and asks, "Hey, bud, what's the name of your p-?" The man to the left, with a smile, looks back and says, "Timex." The guy asks, "Why Timex?" The fella proudly replies, "Because it takes a licking and keeps on ticking." A little shaken, the guy turns to the fella on his right sipping on a fruity margarita. "So, what do you call your p-?" The man to his right turns to him and proudly exclaims, "Ford, because quality is job one." He then adds, "Have you driven a Ford lately?" Even more shaken, the guy has to think for a moment before he comes up with a name for his p-. He turns to the bartender and exclaims, "The name of my p-, is Secret. Now give me my beer." The bartender begins to pour the guy a beer, but with a puzzled look asks, "Why Secret?" The guy says, "Because it's strong enough for a man but made for a woman." I recall my first time with a condom. I was 16 or so. I went in to buy a packet of condoms at the pharmacy. There was this beautiful woman assistant behind the counter, and she could see that I was new at it. She handed me the package and asked if I knew how to wear one. I honestly answered, "No, this is my first time." So she unwrapped the package, took one out, and slipped it over her thumb. She cautioned me to make sure it was on tight and secure. I apparently still looked confused. So, she looked all around the store to see if it was empty. It was empty. "Just a minute," she said, and walked to the door and locked it. Taking my hand, she led me into the back room. She then said it was time to slip the condom on. As I was slipping it on, she dropped her skirt. So I climbed on her. It was so wonderful that, unfortunately, I could no longer hold back, and kapow! I was done within a few moments. She looked at me with a bit of a frown. "Did you put that condom on?" she asked. I said, "I sure did," and held up my thumb to show her. She fainted. A little old lady was walking down the street dragging 2 large plastic rubbish bags behind her. One of the bags was ripped, and every once in a while a 20 thalers fell out onto the pavement. Noticing this, a policeman stopped her and said, "Ma'am, there are $20 notes falling out of that bag." "Oh, really? Darn it," said the little old lady. "I'd better go back and see if I can find them. Thanks for telling me, officer." "Well, now, not so fast," said the cop. "Where did you get all that money? You didn't steal it, did you?" "Oh, no, no," said the old lady. "You see, my backyard is right next to a golf course. A lot of golfers come and pee through a knothole in my fence, right into my flower garden. It used to really tick me off. Kills the flowers, you know. Then I thought, why not make the best of it? So now I stand behind the fence by the knothole, real quiet, with my hedge clippers. Every time some guy sticks his thing through my fence, I surprise him, grab hold of it and say, 'Okay, buddy, give me 20 pounds or off it comes.'" "Well, that seems only fair," said the cop, laughing. "Okay, good luck. Oh, by the way, what's in the other bag?" "Not everyone pays." A guy went out golfing and took a high-speed ball right in the crotch. Writhing in agony, he dropped to the ground. When he finally got himself to the doctor, he said, "How bad is it, Doc? I'm getting married next week, and my fiancée is still a virgin in every way." The doc said, "I'll have to put your in a splint to let it heal and keep it straight. It should be okay by next week." So he took 4 tongue depressors and formed a neat little 4-sided splint and taped it all together. A pretty impressive piece of work. The guy mentioned none of this to his girl. They got married, and on the honeymoon night in their hotel room, she rips open her blouse to reveal a gorgeous set of breasts. This was the first time he saw them, and she said, "You'll be the first. No one has ever touched them before." He tore off his pants and said, "Honey, well, look at this, still in its original crate." At a crowded city bus stop, a beautiful young woman wearing a tight leather skirt was waiting for a bus. As the bus stopped and it was her turn to get on, she became aware that her skirt was too tight to allow her leg to come up to the height of the first step of the bus. Embarrassed, she reached behind her to unzip her skirt a little, thinking that this would give her enough slack to raise her leg. She tried to again take the step, only to discover that she couldn't. Once again, she reached behind her to unzip her skirt more and, for the second time, attempted the step. Again, she could not make the step. About this time, a large guy who was standing behind her picked her up by the waist and placed her gently on the step of the bus. She went ballistic and turned on the would-be Samaritan. "How dare you touch my body? I don't even know who you are." The guy smiled and drawled, "Ma'am, normally I would agree with you, but after you unzipped my fly 3 times, I kind of figured we were." Marie and Clotilde, 2 senior Cajun widows, are talking one day out on the porch down by the bayou. "Marie, that nice Mr. Hebert asked me out for a date. I know you went out with him last week, and I wanted to talk with you about him before I tell him my answer." Clotilde, "Well, I tell you, Hebert himself showed up at my apartment punctually at 7 p.m., dressed like such a gentleman in a fine suit. And he brought me such beautiful flowers, girlfriend. Then he takes me downstairs, and what's there but a luxury car, a limousine, uniformed chauffeur and all. Then he takes me out for dinner. A marvelous dinner, crabs, Jack's beer, lemon pie dessert, and after-dinner shots. Then we go see a show. Let me tell you, Marie, I enjoyed it so much I could have just died from all the pleasure. But then we are coming back to my apartment and... Hebert, he turns into an animal. Completely crazy. He tears off my expensive new dress and, well, he has his way with me twice." Marie, "Oh my goodness. So, you are telling me that I shouldn't go out with him?" Clotilde, No, Marie. I'm just saying, you need to wear an old dress, girl." A woman is at home when she hears someone knocking at her door. She goes to the door, opens it, and sees a man standing there. He asks the lady, "Do you have a..." She slams the door in disgust. The next morning, she hears a knock at the door. It's the same man, and he asks the same question to the woman. Do you have a She slams the door again. Later that night, when her husband gets home, she tells him what has happened for the last 2 days. The husband tells his wife in a loving and concerned voice, Honey, I am taking off tomorrow so as to be home, just case this guy shows up again. The next morning they hear a knock at the door and both run for the door. The husband whispers to the wife, Honey, I'm going to hide behind the door and listen. And if it is the same guy, I want you to answer yes to the question, because I want to see where he's going with this. She nods yes to her husband and opens the door. Sure enough, the same fellow is standing there. He asks, Do you have a vagina? Yes, I do, says the lady. The man replies, Good, would you mind telling your husband to leave my wife alone and start using yours? 2 couples were playing poker one evening. John accidentally dropped some cards on the floor. When he bent down under the table to pick them up, he noticed Bill's wife, Sue, wasn't wearing any underwear under her dress. Shocked by this, John, upon trying to sit back up again, hit his head on the table and emerged red-faced. Later, John went to the kitchen to get some refreshments. Bill's wife followed and asked, Did you see anything that you liked under there? Surprised by her boldness, John courageously admitted that, well, indeed he did. She said, Well, you can have it, but it will cost you $500. After taking a minute or two to assess the financial and moral costs of this offer, John confirms that he is interested. She tells him that since her husband Bill works Friday afternoons and as John doesn't, he should be at her house around 2 p.m. Friday afternoon. When Friday rolled around, John showed up at Bill's house at 2 p.m. sharp, and after paying Sue the agreed sum of $500, they went to the bedroom and closed their transaction as agreed. John then quickly dressed and left. As usual, Bill came home from work at 6 p.m. and upon entering the house asked his wife abruptly, Did John come by the house this afternoon? With a lump in her throat, Sue answered, Why, yes. He did stop by for a few minutes this afternoon. Her heart nearly skipped a beat when her husband curtly asked, And did he give you $500? In terror, she assumed that somehow he had found out, and after mustering her best poker face, replied, Well, yes, in fact, he did give me $500. Bill, with a satisfied look on his face, surprised his wife by saying, Good, I was hoping he did. John came by the office this morning and borrowed $500 from me. He promised me he'd stop by our house this afternoon on his way home and pay me back. An old man joins a very exclusive nudist colony. On his first day there, he takes off his clothes and starts to wander around. A nice-looking redhead walks by, and the man immediately becomes aroused. Noticing this, she approaches him and says, Did you call for me? The man replies, No, what do you mean? She says, You must be new here. Let me explain. It's a rule here that if you get an erection, it implies you called for me. Smiling, she leads him to the side of the swimming pool, lies down on a towel, eagerly pulls him to her, and happily lets him have his way with her. The man continues to explore the colony's facilities. He enters the sauna, and as he sits down, he farts, and within minutes, a huge, hairy man lumbers out of the steam room toward him and says, Did you call for me? Then the newcomer replies, No, what do you mean? The hairy man replies, You must be new. It's a rule that if you fart, it implies that you called for me. The huge man easily spins the newcomer around, bends him over a bench, and has his way with him. The newcomer staggers back to the colony office, where he is greeted by the smiling, naked receptionist, and she says, May I help you? The man yells, Here's my membership card. You can have the key back and you can keep the $500 membership fee. She replies, But sir, you've only been here for a few hours. You haven't had the chance to see all our facilities. The man replies, Listen, lady, I'm an older guy. I only get an erection once a month and I fart 35 times a day. The doctor said, "Joe, the good news is I can cure your headaches. The bad news is that it will require castration. You have a very rare condition which causes your testicles to press on your spine, and the pressure creates one hell of a headache. The only way to relieve the pressure is to remove the testicles." Joe was shocked and depressed. He wondered if he had anything to live for. He had no choice but to go under the knife. When he left the hospital, he was without a headache for the first time in 20 years, but he felt like he was missing an important part of himself. As he walked down the street, he realized that he felt like a different person. He could make a new beginning and live a new life. He saw a men's clothing store and thought, "That's what I need. A new suit." He entered the shop and told the salesman, "I'd like a new suit." The elderly tailor eyed him briefly and said, "Let's see. Size 44 long." Joe laughed. "That's right. How did you know?" "Been in the business 60 years, the tailor said. Joe tried on the suit. It fit perfectly. As Joe admired himself in the mirror, the salesman asked, "How about a new shirt?" Joe thought for a moment and then said, "Sure." The salesman eyed Joe and said, "Let's see, 34 sleeves and 16.5 neck." Joe was surprised. "That's right. How did you know?" "Been in the business 60 years. Joe tried on the shirt and it fit perfectly. Joe walked comfortably around the shop and the salesman asked, "How about some new underwear?" Joe thought for a moment and said, "Sure." The salesman said, "Let's see. Size 36. Joe laughed. "Aha, I got you. I've worn a size 34 since I was 18 years old. The salesman shook his head. "You can't wear a size 34. A size 34 would press your testicles up against the base of your spine and give you one hell of a headache." A farmer stopped by the local mechanic shop to have his truck fixed. They couldn't do it while he waited, so he said he didn't live far and would just walk home. On the way home, he stopped at the hardware store and bought a bucket and a gallon of paint. He then stopped by the feed store and picked up a couple of chickens and a goose. However, struggling outside the store, he now had a problem. How to carry all his purchases? Scratching his head, he was approached by a little old lady who told him she was lost. She asked, "Can you tell me how to get to 1603 Mockingbird Lane?" The farmer said, "Well, as a matter of fact, my farm is very close to that house. I would walk you there, but I can't carry this lot." The old lady suggested, "Why don't you put the can of paint in the bucket? Carry the bucket in one hand, put a chicken under each arm, and carry the goose in your other hand." "Why, thank you very much," he said, and proceeded to walk the old girl home. On the way, he says, "Let's take my shortcut and go down this alley. We'll be there in no time." The little old lady looked him over cautiously, then said, "I am a lonely widow without a husband to defend me. How do I know that when we get in the alley you won't hold me up against the wall and have your way with me? I'm carrying a bucket, a gallon of paint, 2 chickens, and a goose." "How in the world could I possibly hold you up against the wall and do that?" The old lady replied, "Set the goose down, cover him with the bucket, put the paint on top of the bucket, and I'll hold the chickens." "Oh, frisky, master." A middle-aged woman had a heart attack and was taken to the hospital. While on the operating table, she had a near-death experience. Seeing God, she asked. God answered, "No, you have another 40 years, 2 months, and 8 days to live." Upon recovery, the woman decided to stay in the hospital and have a tummy tuck. She even had someone come in and change her hair color. To live, she figured she might as well make the most of it. After her last operation, she was released from the hospital. While crossing the street on her way home, she was hit by a car and died immediately. Arriving in front of God, she demanded, "I thought you said I had another 40 years. Why didn't you pull me out of the path of the car?" God replied, "I didn't recognize you." In a Brisbane hospital, a gentleman had made several attempts to get into the men's restroom, but it had always been occupied. A nurse noticed his predicament. "Sir," she said, You may use the ladies' room if you promise not to touch any of the buttons on the wall. He did what he needed to, and as he sat there, he noticed the buttons he had promised not to touch. Each button was identified by letters, W, W, A, P, P, and a... Who would know if he touched them? He couldn't resist. He pushed W. Warm water was sprayed gently upon his bottom. What a nice feeling, he thought. Men restrooms don't have nice things like this. Anticipating greater pleasure, he pushed the WA button. Warm air replaced the warm water, gently drying his underside. Pushed the PP button. He pushed the PP button. A large powder puff caressed his bottom, adding a fragile scent of spring flowers to this unbelievable pleasure. The ladies' restroom was more than a restroom. It was tender, loving pleasure. When the powder puff completed its pleasure, he couldn't wait to push the ATR button, which he knew would be supreme ecstasy. Next thing he knew, he opened his eyes. He was in a hospital bed, and a nurse was staring down at him. "What happened?" he exclaimed. "The last thing I remember was pushing the ATR button." "The button ATR is an automatic tampon remover. Your penis is under your pillow." One day, this big, nasty, sweaty woman wearing a raggedy, sleeveless sundress walks into a bar. She raises her right arm, revealing a big, hairy armpit as she points to all the people sitting at the bar and asks, "What man out there will buy a lady a drink?" The whole bar goes dead silent as the patrons try to ignore her. At the end of the bar, a skinny little pisshead slams his hand on the bar and says, "Barman, I want to buy that ballerina a drink." The barman pours the drink and the woman chugs it down. After she's completed the drink, she turns again to the throng and points around at all of them, again revealing the hairy armpit, saying, "What man out there will buy a lady a drink?" Once again, the little drunk slaps his hand down on the bar and slurs to the barman, "Sir, I would like to buy the ballerina another drink." After serving the lady her second drink, the barman approaches the little drunkard and says, "It's your business if you want to buy the lady a drink, but why do you keep calling her a ballerina?" To which the drunk replies, "Sir, in my eyes, any woman who can lift her leg up that high has got to be a ballerina." A young farm couple, Homer and Darlene, got married and just couldn't seem to get enough lovin'. In the morning, before Homer left the house for the fields, they made love. When Homer came back from the fields, they made love, and again at bedtime, they made love. The problem was their nooner. It took Homer a half hour to travel home and another half hour to return to the fields, and he just wasn't getting enough work done. Finally, Homer asked the town doctor what to do. "Homer," said the doctor, "just take your rifle out to the field with you, and when you're in the mood, fire off a shot into the air. That will be Darlene's signal to come out to you. Then you won't lose any field time." They tried Doc's advice, and it worked well for a while. Homer came back to the doctor's office. "What's wrong?" asked the doc. "Didn't my idea work?" "Oh, it worked real good," said Homer. "Whenever I was in the mood, I fired off a shot like you said, and Darlene would come running. We'd find a secluded place, make love, and then she'd go back home again." "Good, Homer. So what's the problem?" asked the doc. "I haven't seen her since hunting season started." "Did you hear about the teacher who was helping one of her pupils put on his boots? He asked for help, and she could see why. Even with her pulling and him pushing, the little boots still didn't want to go on. By the time they got the second boot on, she had worked up a sweat. She almost cried when the little boy